Why do I put up a flower of the Edelweiss? I mean, you can't come to Switzerland and not adore the Edelweiss. But you know, since there are quite a few of you as scientists, and I'm not going to ask the question to people in manufacturing, what is so unique about this Edelweiss? You know, this Edelweiss has the capacity to tolerate UV at 2,000 meters altitude, never get blisters, never get burned, never suffer. And do they use then some zinc oxides or titanium oxides to block the UV? Of course not. They're smarter than we are. I mean, they've been at it for a couple million years, and we're at it for a couple hundred years. So we can expect that those who have a couple million years have a head start. The really unique thing about the Edelweiss is not just they're beautiful and they're critically endangered. The real beauty of the Edelweiss is that they're able to take in their plushy skin the UV and they scatter the UV so it never affects any of their cells. That's smart. I mean, just think about it. What do you try to do to block UV? Because if you don't block the UV, you get decoloration of your textiles too fast, and you don't like that. And I know what you're putting in there, and I would like you to think like the Edelweiss has solved it. Because the Edelweiss has great solutions for us, which we don't seem to find ourselves very easily. Now, when you go around in the mountains, don't pick up an Edelweiss, okay? Leave it there, take a picture, and adore it. I have a very special relationship with orangutan. Not because I behave them, not because I researched them, because in 1991 I created this chemical industry that was only working with biodegradable raw materials, fatty acids from palm oil. And that's the time I learned to know Yvon Chouinard. I was not only doing biodegradable products, I was doing biodegradable products in a biodegradable factory. I was doing in a biodegradable factory, it's completely made out of wood, and that is to be recycled into a sports hall. That's what I was thinking. You got to think 25 years ahead. But I was very keen on saving energy in my factory. And so I dressed all my staff into Patagonia underwear. Yeah, everyone had the Capilene underwear when it was first got onto the market, because that saved me about 4 degrees Celsius on my thermostat. So when I placed my order with Patagonia, I got a call from California, and they're saying, "Are you preparing for a big trip to Himalayas?" I said, "No, I'm just giving it to my staff at the factory." So the factory staff is going to the Himalayas. No, I'm just using it to save energy. That led to a very enjoyable meeting with Yvon Chouinard. And that is part of the things that I was doing. Trying to get out of the box. Change the rules of the game. Why would we turn the thermostat down when we can just dress them up in Capilene underwear? Why would you do that? I mean, and everyone was very happy. But as you know, and some of you probably know, that in 1993, in November, I was in Kalimantan. I got red carpet treatment from the Indonesian government because it was the biggest buyer of fatty acids from palm oil for detergents. And then I saw that I was destroying the rainforests. I was destroying the habitat of the orangutan because I wanted to have biodegradable products from a renewable source, and I didn't realize it was not sustainable. Now, what a wake-up call. I did not know the difference between sustainability, biodegradability, renewable resources, resource efficiency. That was all confusing when I stood there before the place where the orangutan lost his habitat. So one of my first initiatives was to start finding alternatives for the lauryl ether sulfate. And that was my great contribution. In Brazil, I found finally some entrepreneurs, those who were exporting shiploads of frozen yogurt to Europe. And I wondered, what are they doing with their peels? You may know Brazil today is the largest supplier of delaminine. Extracted from the peels. First they make the juice, then they extract the peels. And with that, we now make detergents. Not in Europe. Europe loves that biodegradable soap from palm oil. I don't know. I've been trying to tell the Europeans change. But sometimes when we've gone through the change, we have a hard time to realize that the only constant we have in life is change. And so we got to change again. This is what innovation is all about, right? Innovation is realizing that there is discontinuity in your great idea and that there are always other great ideas. But you only have real change when you can be passionate. Now, sometimes you need to take a step back, close your eyes, not look at the north. You close your eyes and think about how can I make a difference in the world. You know, that's something when we close our eyes and think about. And it helps when you see something like this, right? A sea otter clinging on, sleeping into kelp, that's the kind of a symbiosis we usually don't see. But once you see it, you get fascinated by kelp. I mean, my son, Louis Adrien, once he saw the sea otter, he thinks kelp is the greatest thing in the world. And of course, no teacher's ever telling him about kelp. And we don't even really know what kelp is. We only know it grows twice as fast as bamboo. And it gets to 50 meters without roots. And then we start thinking about the kelp. So I'm on a discovery tour with my sons in South Africa about 10 years ago, and we find this incredible kelp. And of course, my other son, you know, Philippe Emmanuel, he doesn't think these big kelps are interesting because that's what his little brother is interested in. So he's interested in the little red kelps. The red, not kelp, my son, this is not kelp anymore. This is a red seaweed, and you got the green seaweeds and the brown seaweeds. And what are we now going into? Well, once you get into the seaweeds, you see the macroalgae, and now we're going to the microalgae, and we are discovering the world of algae. Ladies and gentlemen, the chemistry of algae, I think, is one of the most fascinating, in particular for the textile industry. We're making textiles out of algae. We're making color dyes out of algae. I don't know, may I check who is doing that here in the room? Which room are we? Did I confuse the meeting rooms? Is this blue design? Is this, Fraunhofer is already studying this. We have a research institute with 50 PhDs doing this. But we're not only doing textiles, we're doing everything. Because, you know, here we're at the top in Bangkok. Who's from Thailand? Yes, Novotel in Bangkok. That's what you will see. But you normally don't go to the top of the hotel. You stay in the, in the restaurant. Now, when you go for breakfast to the top of the Novotel, you see the algae growing, the microalgae. This is spirulina. You can order your spirulina smoothie in the morning. And with the leftover from the spirulina every morning, because we got so much spirulina on the roof, because they pump so much CO2 out, that we think that it's a great idea to make food out of it. Don't cap and trade it. I mean, why would you ever want to cap and trade CO2 when you can make spirulina in abundance? And we have too much spirulina. What a nice problem. Who takes spirulina pills in this room? At least one. Hey, that's why you're so healthy and smiling, I mean, your hair really looks like spirulina. Now, what is happening? Spirulina is this incredible micronutrient bomb that are microalgae, which grow just about anywhere. But now we have too much from the morning because not everyone wants that smoothie with spirulina, which is basically all you need in the morning. And so now we mix it into the spaghetti, so we got some spirulina spaghetti as well. And now we still have leftover, and now we can do a real CSR program. We give the spirulina for free. Now, normally it's costing you $16,000 a ton wholesale, and now you can give it for free. Nice. How does it feel when you give greatest nutrition on earth for free? Now, this is the kind of thinking we do. And I'm just bombarding you with a few lines of thought. But my organization, when you hear me say we, it is 3,000 researchers who are networked since 1994, finding very pragmatic solutions for things that we know can be solved now. Who wants to wait for 5 years? Now we can solve it. And that is the kind of urgency that somehow business has lost. Business is managing. We're not entrepreneuring anymore. And everything needs to be approved. And whatever we do, there needs to be a feasibility study, a business plan, a technology audit, and as a result, we do nothing but writing the papers. We have a different mentality. We have next to our think tank, which is called ZERI, Zero Emissions Research and Initiatives, we have a do tank. The first one is 850, the first one is 3,000, the second one is 850, and we do. It's prohibited to write an Excel spreadsheet. Can't do that in our organization. The only moment you can start writing a business plan is when you get your second invoice paid. Because then you know what the business is all about. If you get invoices paid, you know what it is. If you have not an invoice paid, it's all dream world. Close your eyes and try to find the north. Now here we're in Indonesia. Anyone from Indonesia here? They used to have a great textile industry. It's collapsing. So with the Indonesian government, we're working with the regeneration of the mangroves, because the mangroves were cut down, and the mangroves were cut down. That's the reason why when the tsunami hit, so many people got killed, because the mangrove is a natural buffer for tsunamis. So we thought we need to regenerate the mangroves, but the message was that's too expensive. So those who destroyed it don't have the money anymore. They went bankrupt. There was the shrimp farmers. And they had the white spot virus attacking. And so when the white spot virus attacked, they went bankrupt, so they can't restore what they should have been doing by now. And so here comes our way of thinking. We have regenerating massively mangroves in Indonesia. This is Java. We start on Java. And because of the mangroves, we actually create those channels in between, and in those channels we do shrimp farming. We farm shrimps without feeding the shrimps. You know what your cost structure is? Now you can't feed them without the feed unless you have the seaweeds. You see where I come from? Now we have the gracilaria, and now the gracilaria, when we have our biorefinery, the first biorefinery in the world for seaweeds is in East Java. And now we can extract not only the agar-agar and from the other seaweeds the carrageenan, which the food industry wants, but now at the same time we can move on and use those fibers to produce textiles and color pigments. You go to Java, you go to the airport, you will be swamped by people who want to sell you a piece of textile which you think is too expensive. We're just getting into the pace, but we have the biorefinery in Java that allows us to produce and food and textiles. And guess what? When you harvest the gracilaria seaweed, you always get little crustaceans with it, and we convert those into calcium quality for the medicinal industry. So we're selling fillers for pharmaceuticals. Doing what? Regenerating mangroves. Do you think we have money? Yes. Because we generate multiple cash flows. This is the problem of business today. You look at one core business with one core cash flow. That's why you're always stuck with your competitive analysis and you hire consultants to come and sort you out. You got to do things in the world. Algae. That's Fraunhofer. Who knows Fraunhofer Institute? Yeah. Have you ever talked to them about their alchemy project? No. Did they talk to you about it? No. Why don't you talk? So I have mentors. I've been very privileged over the years to have these mentors, and of course, I cannot do this without mentioning Yvon Chouinard, who you see in there. In the world, we need mentors who don't have a direct interest in your business, because we can only be mentored when we have people who know nothing about your business. So when we put innovative teams together to tackle something like a mangrove, do you think the team expert in planting mangroves would have come up with calcium for pharmaceuticals? But it's our biggest cash flow. That's what pays nearly for everything. And with that cash flow, we get pre-sales on that, which allows us to invest these $9 million in the facility. Because you get an order to buy, you're bankable. We understand that language, right? You need to be bankable with all these new initiatives. So therefore, the key is, it's not the technology audit, it's are you bankable, and can you get the logic together so you become bankable with it? And therefore, you need mentors. And what I'm doing today is thanks to our Japanese friends. Thank you. Because in 1994, the Japanese government got a mandate for COP3, where the Kyoto Protocol was decided. And I was asked to prepare the business model for zero emissions. Now, Toyota ran with it for a while. But when I did my presentation in December 97 in Kyoto, you know how many people were in the audience? 4, me included. I mean, no one was interested. No one was interested in changing the business model. Now, what I'm arguing for you is that you can look at all the technologies, you can look at all the processes, but what is required is a change of the business model. That's tough, because we're brainwashing all these MBAs to think in exactly the same way. And how do we think? We think we got a core business with a core competence, with lower marginal cost, high productivity, we cut the labor, we do economies of scale, we will outsource. We have, of course, the supply chain management. And we do just in time, we have distribution centers, so we got the logistics kit. And cash flow is our king. We adore cash flow. You don't even have to be profitable as long as you show cash flow. So we're going to leverage the assets, we're going to be competitive, and we're going to be part of this global economy. Yay! That's what we've been doing for 30, 40 years. And so what's the result? The result is that we have massive youth unemployment. Massive youth unemployment, because we don't need it anymore. I mean, Greece, youth unemployment is just 75%, you know. Just try to pay back all these loans that actually came from Goldman Sachs 10 years ago, but we don't talk about it anymore. Communities die, local communities die, because, I mean, everything is globalized. Did you know that in the next 20 years, there are only 10 countries that will generate net jobs? 10? That means the other 206 will be losing jobs. Welcome to the world of globalization. Isn't it time to change a little bit our logic? I know it's not your responsibility. You're in charge of business. You're a supply chain manager. You are in manufacturing and innovation. But is austerity now the solution? Cutting costs? And I said, no. We said, whatever is being proposed as green is great, but unfortunately, whatever is great for the environment is expensive. That means it's for the rich. And where did they make their money? In doing the other thing. That's not the way we're going to go forward. The way we're going to go forward is different. We're going to be blue, and that's a coincidence. That has nothing to see with you. And if you don't like my blue, you can change the color to any color you want. The only thing I'm interested in is that you do. We got to do things. So we got to be innovative. We got to be innovative in the business model, and we're going to generate value. We're going to generate so much value with what we have that we outcompete everyone, not on costs, but on value generation. So if I want to be the best Gracilaria extractor with carrageenan and agar-agar, then I'm going to do calcium high quality for pharmaceuticals. Because I'm going to be able to offer my carrageenan to the market much cheaper. And you know what? The European Union doesn't understand it. The Americans don't understand it. It has nothing to do with trusts and antitrust. This is about generating so much value you outcompete. That's the logic we have. I summarize it in a book called The Blue Economy, and the new Blue Economy just came out about 6 weeks ago in India. I decided to publish my English version in India. After all, it's the largest English-speaking country in the world. Why would you go to New York or San Francisco? Or London, for that sake. So the first book of mine, the title was 100 Innovations, 10 Years, 100 Million Jobs. My new subtitle is 200 Projects Implemented, $4 billion Invested, 3 million Jobs Generated. And it only has just begun. Let me share you some of these things that we're doing. Start with the most important one that I'm in charge of. I'm chairman of a company called Novamont. Who knows Novamont? Thank you. Italiano? Yeah, of course. Italians have at least a sense of pride. Now, where are we? We're in Porto Torres. We're in the facility that was the first cracker in Italy, petrochemical cracker of Italy. And of course, they had great relationships with Libya, and when that stopped, they weren't competitive anymore, they had to close it down. They were processing 2 million tons of petroleum to make 700,000 tons of chemicals. That's not resource efficient. And what did we do? Let's listen to this. You know this flower? It's called a thistle. Cardo, cardoon. It's a flower that we have the obligation to kill because it's a weed. Now, there's 360,000 tons of cardo in Sardinia because the European Union has been paying farmers not to farm. What do you have when you don't farm? Do you think we have to move to Asia to be cheap? No! We get the cheapest raw material in the world. What's the cost of thistles? You don't have to plant it, you don't have the pesticides, you don't have the herbicides, the only thing you have to do is harvest. It's nice, huh? What's the cost of harvesting? Well, I'm not going to tell you my trade secrets, but as chairman of the company, I can tell you it's very good. Shale gas will never ever compete with us. Never! Petroleum is a joke for us. We are much cheaper than petroleum, and guess what? Our waste, apart from the products that we make, the lubricants, we actually extract the natural herbicides from the plant. We don't have to synthesize them. They come naturally out of the plant. You know what it means in costing for the herbicide? It's cheap. We're getting polymers. We can make different types of polymers. You know, our azelaic acids and esters and pelargonic esters, we just get it from the plant. But our waste, which is 20%, is feed for the animals. Oh, that's nice. How many chemical plants do you know that give their waste to the animals because it's edible? And then we have these incredible little dusts on the flowers, which we were told was a bacterial enzyme, and that we use to make goat cheese. So bye-bye Novozymes from Denmark. We are 1/10 of your cost price. Doing what? By paying unionized salaries at the level of the chemical industry in Europe. And we outcompete. And if you think this is an exception, yeah, it was an exception, but today our organization has already taken over 6 petrochemical facilities throughout Italy. Italy is the first country in the world that has closed all crackers, except one which is still under contract with Shell. Everything else has been closed. We close crackers, but I'm not going as an environmentalist to say, let's close the crackers. I'm going out and say, whatever petrochemical facility you have, we'll take it and we'll turn it around to a bioplant. We'll raise 540 million euro for this in 3 weeks' time. How often do you get 530 million euro for a new project in 3 weeks? Why is the money there? Because it has exceptional cash flow. I'm not against the cash flow. I'm not against the ROIs. I'm in favor of much better. But much better with projects that are better, like what we're doing here in South Africa. This is a mine dump. You know, we always close our eyes when we see that. And actually, when we're going to do some bit of tourism, we don't go and look at that. But that mine dump is now converted to stone paper. And we've introduced the new polymers that allow us to do stone paper. But now we do the stone paper, paper made from stone, 80% stone, 20% polymer. And those polymers, we are working to make them from thistles. You know, why don't we change the rules of the game? What we're needing is outcompete, not compete. If you're competing, you do 3% more, 5% more, 3%. Forget about that game. Do 10 times better. Why not? The problem is that doesn't fit the Excel sheet. And if you put it in your Excel sheet, no one believes it. They say you put a 0 too much somewhere. You know, double check when you pull your zeros in. So we have the largest factory in China. Europe wasn't prepared to play along. This year we're going to be 1 million tons of stone paper in China. We were at 12,000 tons 3 years ago, and we want to go to 25 million tons. We want to upset the market. I didn't come here to please everyone. Did you? I mean, if you please everyone except yourself. So we need to look at these new games, and we changed even the machinery. Henry Liang from Longmeng Technologies rethought the paper machineries. We don't use water. Interesting. We don't cut a tree. And the paper is recyclable forever. You know what most people say? This is fantasy. They don't believe it. People don't believe this is possible. That's how stuck we are in our business models of today. Because we know paper is made with fibers, and maybe you reduce the fibers and you have more fillers, but you're definitely going to use water, 0 water. That's why China goes for it. Because China has no water. Now our Scandinavian friends still have a lot of water, and so their paper industry, but it can't compete either. It was bought by the Finns. So we need to see how can we change this around. Just like 25 years ago, we started with coffee. Did you have a cup of coffee in the morning? Did you ever think about what happened to what did not end up in your cup of coffee? Because that's 99.8%. What you ingest is 0.2%. Means your resource efficiency basis is pretty abysmal. I mean, now don't feel bad. People who drink tea are worse. They only use 0.1%. So at least you're double the tea drink as well, and on top of that you get your caffeine shot. Now, you may already know that when you have coffee, and perhaps you have coffee in a very special way, but when you have coffee, we farm mushrooms in it. We have 3,000 mushroom farms on coffee today. 3,000. And I think it's a failure. I think we should have 500,000. When a company like Nestlé, which you may know, makes instant coffee, they have 3 million tons of wastes. That would mean 3 million tons of mushrooms. That would mean 1.5 million tons of feed for chickens. That would mean that they actually could generate 600,000 jobs. Now, do you know a board that wants to take on 600,000 additional jobs? No way! And what is the excuse for not doing it? We're not in the mushroom business. And I say, let's organize something else. No. We've decided to burn everything because we're going to reduce. Now, here is what I believe will be the new ethics of business. It's not the CSR. The new ethics is, are you happy to do less bad? Are you happy to pollute less? I mean, as far as I know, stealing is stealing. Stealing less is stealing. Polluting less is polluting. Do we agree? This is basic ethics. If you steal less, you steal, right? If you pollute less, you pollute, right? And polluting is no good, so doing less pollution is no good. We got to do more good. And that's why we developed this whole industry. So yes, we have the mushrooms, we have the chicken feed, and Syntex. Who has worked with Syntex? Great, I got a few more hands. So we got Syntex, creative guys, Jason Chang, really putting the coffee into the textiles. And we saw that and we said, that's great, but let's go beyond that. Now we're putting into nylon 6 in carpets. You have rooms that don't smell because the smell is absorbed. Not like this carpet, but this will have perhaps a natural color. And now we put it into refrigerators. In the refrigerators, the polyurethane, we lace the polyurethane with about 20% of coffee oil. So that now we have fridges that naturally absorb all the odors. So we don't have to do like Grandma was doing. Grandma put coffee beans in there. We just put the coffee beans into the polyurethane. And we're mixing it with paint. Because what's one of the biggest problems of paint, of course? Not that it smells, but that it should be better resistant to UV. And coffee is not only nice in absorbing smells, it also shatters the UV like the Edelweiss does. So that shattering of the UV is helpful now in the paint industry. This is innovation. You know how many jobs are generated in the coffee industry, in our view, in the next 20 years? More than there's in the textile industry. Because we're using coffee not only to drink. We use coffee to eat it, to feed with it, to wear it, to put it into carpets, to insulate with, to paint with it. That's the chemistry. So now we got the algae chemistry, now we got the coffee chemistry. And some of that would be interesting for you, some of that is for interesting others, but I need to talk to you about my 6 children. Because if you've gone through 6 children, you've gone through this. Yeah. Is this in the world of textiles? No, that's non-woven fabric. So you probably say, that's non-woven, that's not us. Well, we're working at the moment in the city of Berlin. Anyone from Berlin here? Berlin. Niemand van Berlin here. Okay. So I have the freedom to tease them. Berlin has 109,000 babies. That means 125,000 trucks a year of diapers. Shipped in and shipped out. I don't know if you've ever thought about 125,000 trucks, but that's what the babies produce. Now, you can be negative, you can be positive, but we take the baby poo, and of course this is a natural fiber, and this is biodegradable plastic, and that's made locally, and we take the baby poo and the pee, and we make it into terra preta. Who knows terra preta? Thank you. This black earth. that extraordinary black earth that in the Amazon forest has given fertility, that the Vikings used south of Gothenburg to be able to attack the south of Europe. In order to have a great supply, they needed food and they needed to have soil. So we produce black earth with the botanical gardens of Berlin. And that black earth, what do we do with it? We plant fruit trees. Now, let me ask you the question. If you have one child a whole year using a diaper, how many kilograms of black earth do you think the baby produces? Enough for 1,000 fruit trees. So what business are we? Are we in the diaper business or in the fruit tree business? You know, if you are wanting to take on Procter & Gamble, then you better change the rules of the game. Because if you want to play against Procter the way Procter plays, you lose. You got to change the rules of the game. And if you're small, you change the rules of the game because that's the only way to survive. Read the Bible, it's in there. I mean, David won against Goliath, right? And so we get some comfort to know that we will win. But the key is that what happens, and I'm not going to go through the details here, but what happens when you have for every baby 1,000 fruit trees a year? That means 109,000 babies means 109 million trees. Where in the hell are we going to put the trees? We don't have enough space. So we're busy negotiating with Herr Oberbürgermeister Müller. And Herr Oberbürgermeister Müller has identified between Berlin and Potsdam enough space to do 2.5 billion fruit trees. We said, well, that's good, but only for about 20 years. What do we do afterwards? He said, well, then we worry about that then. But what happens if you have 100 million trees every year that give you 50 kilograms of fruits? You have redefined the market for Hip and Gerber. Those who do pre-mixed baby food are out of the market because you're generating in Berlin the capacity to produce for the babies organic, natural, locally made, and cheap. Thanks to what? Thanks to the pee and the poo of the baby. Now, this is redefining the name. This is redefining the game. And we're implementing this. And I think this is very important. On October 25, we have the big launch for 1,500 entrepreneurs because we're raising $10 million against it. And we will. And this is part of the exercise. Why will we? Because we've gone through the exercise with 100 families in groups. And what do you do when you have the families deposit a box of diapers with everything in it between 9 and 11 in the morning on Saturday? Everyone learns to know each other, and thanks to Google Maps, we can exactly put the people together. We generate what? We generate community. I mean, didn't I say communities are dying? Can we have a business strategy to build up community instead of consumers being consumers? And what do you think is the loyalty of the people when they believe that there is community? They come back for more. Loyalty. Repeat customers is one of our key characteristics in the business. That's how we can really get the cash flow going. And here are the first trees which are being planted in Berlin. We're planting the trees. Change the rules of the game. If we only teach the children what we know, they can never do better than we do. We need to create a great degree of freedom. We need freedom to think out of the box. We need freedom to think out of this straitjacket that's called core business. And I know it's going to be hard with your investors and your shareholders, but I tell you, I've been to London and I've been to New York, and when I sit down to these investors, I just show them the P&L and the balance sheet. I don't talk about diapers, seaweeds, and sea otters. I just show them what it does to the P&L and the balance sheet, and they love it. Because they've never seen that strengthening of assets before. Because the change of the business model is also that if you have a bad asset, stranded assets we name that, like an old cracker in Sardinia, how much do you have to put in as a provision if you want to close it down? A 1962 cracker with asbestos. I wish you good luck. You're stuck with over $1 billion. And what if we now change it and we create a cash flow generating activity with local resources, and we commit to the government of Italy that we'll do the cleanup out of our own cash flow over the next 25 years? You want to look at the P&L and the balance sheet? You know what it means if you don't have to put 1 billion in a provision on your balance sheet because you finally need to close that facility? And we don't close that facility because we just keep ticking on, because otherwise we have to make the provision. And of course, every year it's a negotiation with PwC because they don't think that way. They think we should put in the provision. Who likes to put in a provision for 250 or 500 million? You don't want to do that. So this is why all decisions that we make on every single of our innovation projects is P&L and balance sheet based. That's the way we can change. Now, as I said, most people think that it's fantasy. So therefore, I talk to those who don't make a distinction between fantasy and reality. That means children. A child of 5 years doesn't think this is fantasy and that is reality. For a child, everything is reality. That's why my biggest cooperation today is with the Chinese government. And we're doing a pilot in China. 10 million children are following all my fables, all my stories, because I've created for every single successful project a fable, a children's story. Yeah, we got to think a bit more long term, right? Next 10, 20, 30 years. So the Chinese government, after 3 years of research, has decided that all my fables will be freely available to all children in elementary school. What do you think happens when a child comes home and says, "Daddy, we can make paper from stones"? Daddy will say, "That's not possible." "Daddy, I have a piece of paper right with me. Here it is. I have it." Daddy says, that's polymers, that's plastics." "No, Daddy, it's it." Children get enthused about it, and Daddy has only one option: to listen. You know, they may shut down the meeting in the board, and they may shut down the meeting with some proposal, but they can't shut down their kids. Because the kids, when they get after it, they want it. And therefore, to me, what is very important, you can innovate in your business. You can set your goals and your strategies. But business needs to start inspiring the young people. If you're not inspiring young people, you're going to be out of business before you know it. And I think that is the key. We need to shift from our present set of being so focused, not only focused on the technology and the product and the cash flow and all of that, we need to start focusing on society. Society is the key. And when we have this massive unemployment, our reaction is that the best reaction we can have is inspire children that these parents have no clue what the world is all about. Because if the children think that their parents have no clue what it's all about, then they have the self-confidence that at least they can do better than their parents. Now, there's nothing better in society than when children think they can do better than their parents. That society has a future. And when the parents believe that it's true, the kids will do better, because when the kids come ask this enormous, simple question, "Daddy, how did the apple get up in the tree?" Then Daddy goes to Google, and he Googles, and Google doesn't answer the question. Wow! Google doesn't know either how the apple got up in the tree. And the only thing the professor in physics can imagine is that, this must be something to do with capillary and surface tension. But I guarantee you, I can put you all together in a workshop for a half a day. It's going to take you a little while to figure out how the apple got up in the tree. And isn't it obvious that if you don't know how the apple got up, what's the use of knowing how it came down? This is how our business world is thinking. We know how the apple comes down. We have no idea how it ever got up. And that's why we need to go onto a discovery route. A discovery where we can build on that great wisdom, the great wisdom of business, but inspire children, so that we can remember what Nelson Mandela said. It always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you.